Thank you, Alistair. Thank you, Edbury.
Thank you.
Right, we will go back to item 12. Kura and Graham, welcome. We sped along earlier, so apologies for being too fast and catching up.
Order. No apologies required. So this is the final report for Te Toa Takatini for the year ended 30th of June 2017. As noted previously, we had, we'll go back to the start. I take this as read. I'm not going to go through this whole report line by line, so just highlight some activities. But as reported earlier, a lot of the activity, or 35% of the annual budget, was spent in the fourth quarter, so a lot of the activity took place in the final quarter. Like you to note the progress on key Te Toa Takatini portfolio projects. Just highlighting some things that came up during the year. We've, with the Whaipainga area, Māori social wellbeing, we're on point 10 here, looking at the $818,000 against the annual budget of $967, so we spent up to 80% of that. And noting the variance around the Whare for Life Māori housing at $95,000. Most of that was underspend was due to delays in the appointment of a senior advisor role. Go on to the next one, Whaitiaki, the Māori cultural wellbeing. We spent 75% of that budget in the year. A significant underspend, but $1 million of that will be carried forward under the Māori Cultural Initiatives Fund, as we have contracted that out, and most of that will be, well, that will be spent in the 2017-2018 year, and we've requested carryover of those 8 marae development projects and 1 Papakainga housing application that was approved in the fourth quarter. Kaitiaki Ranger Forum, the $186,000, we've requested that to be carried forward as well, the commitments made. The Beneath Our Feet project, which is the Mana Whenua storytelling project, a significant amount of that has been spent already, but we're carrying forward $195,000 to the following financial year as the commitments have been made up to September this year, and that project is progressing. The Mana Whenua Kaitiaki Forum, $70,000 underspend, mainly due to delays in progressing the forum meetings, but that activity is well underway now and is progressing really, really well. Highlighting the Kaitiaki Tango Tāmaki Makaurau, the capacity funding was a bit of an overspend there of $150,000, mainly due to 3 relationship agreements with iwi, Mana Whenua iwi, that we carried forward into future years, that we signed up for, in future years. The Whaipainga Māori social wellbeing, we've got 15 Māori housing projects at varying stages of the development process, and 5 Papakainga projects are in progress, so that area has progressed quite significantly during the year as well. The Māori Cultural Initiatives Fund, as we've said before, we've funded 8 projects. Capacity contracts we've mentioned already. Jump forward to the treaty audit report. I think this area that we're responsible for is progressing well. It's over the 3 years, we've got 7 of the 24 action groups completely closed, 17 action groups yet to be closed. But out of these, 8 are substantially progressed, with 9 are partially progressed. And those 8 that are substantially progressed, we expect to clear those out in the first quarter of this year, I think it is. And so that's, I think that audit report plan program is, or treaty audit program is going to plan. As far as the Māori responsiveness plans, we've got 11 plans now complete, 17 in development. 7 of those are in the final review stage, so that's progressing well. We're working on some big ones, I suppose, at the moment. Water care is the one that I think I'm watching carefully, or watching closely, see how that goes. But, some big areas of council like that to be done. With all the detailed reports on the back, I mean, if there are any questions, we'll take questions now.
Councillor Casey.
2 questions, Graham. The first is just the same question I asked you last time you were here. It was about local board responsiveness plans. And there was some discussion about a particular local board who was underperforming in that area. And I never did find out who that board was, by the way, even though you promised. So I'm seeking an update on the 21 local boards and their participation in this. And then I have another question after that.
Yeah, that understand that your question. That has progressed really well. We've got a significant number. I can't even remember how many we've got completed now, but in terms of the local boards. But we're still having difficulty with that one board, and that's due to go out this week, in actual fact, to finalise that situation, and that'll complete that particular one. And we plan to have at least another 9 completed by Christmas this year, I think is the number, of the relationship agreements with mana whenua iwi. So that's progressed well. I think we've underestimated, or I particularly underestimated, the workload, I suppose, around getting local boards on board with the relationship agreements. So we've got, governance approval, obviously, or governing body approval for the relationship agreements, and the iwi are ready to go, so it's just a matter of getting all the local boards lined up for them.
So when do you think that'll be complete? What's the target for 21?
Oh, definitely this financial year. As I said, we've got 9 ready to go now, and we're literally just getting dates. That's our biggest issue right now.
Thank you. I had another question. In the report somewhere it talks about targeted training for elected members. Where are we at with that?
That's a kura kawana program that we run with governance, out of governance, and which I'm not certain at what stage we're at, but it's a work in progress, literally. So there's quite a few programs that have been run already with various local boards.
Some of us have been.
And some of the councillors.
Yeah.
I've been to some. Yeah, I'm just asking where it's at in terms of into the future.
Okay, well, I'll have to come back to you on that. I'm not exactly certain where we are, but it's a regular dated program, so it's progressed as we go through the year.
They've been great. I'd recommend it to every councillor.
Councillor, Member Taiperi.
Oh, kia ora, Mr. Chairman. Me ana ki a korua I tēnei wā. Thank you for the report. I'm probably not as upbeat as everybody else. I was, because my thing is this, $8 million. We projected some years ago $29 million. You can only get spent 80% of $8 million. If we're at the true realisation of what we want, you're not spending much at all. So that's the view I have. Again, you say in the last quarter you get to spend 35% or increase it by 35%. On that basis, next year you'll be spent it all in 9 months, I hope. I guess I'm watching those things, I've seen the slow progress. I've heard the rationale around why there's been some delays in achieving the spend. And then we have a massive, an increase of activity and opportunities. So, I'll take all that into context over the next 12 months. I'll certainly be looking at that because there should be no reason, in my view, that the activity decreases and that we don't find ourselves with further underspend. 80% of the budget. We've been through this. We've done financial reports through KPMG to this council around identifying the funds that are through the LTP, through the annual plan, and seeking to spend those. And again, to see cultural well-being, the one that's suffering, in my view, underspend, and I think that's around predominantly the $1 million Cultural Initiatives Fund, is a concern. So, again, you're the messengers of the council organisation. I always find it difficult throwing it out there at you when I actually reflect this to the whole organisation of Auckland Council and its CCOs. What I am a little bit wary about, Mr. Chairman, is the talks of carrying funds over, and the language that's used under paragraph 11, excuse me, is a request has been made for the Māori Cultural Initiatives Fund. And then the next one is will be carried forward.
for the Kaitiaki Ranger Forum. And beneath our feet, a request has been made.
What is it? Is it going to be carried over? And I come back to you, Mr. Chairman of this committee. I'm sure I've had advice in the past, we don't do those sorts of things. We sometimes relabel it as reprioritisation because where it suits some people's aspirations, that's the label we give it. But I am very unclear from this report that that's actually going to happen. And should there not be some place that is confirming that it is going to happen, because a request is just a request, it's not a definite. And yet, when I read the Kaitiaki Ranger Forum stuff, it makes me look like it's definite, but I still don't see any confirmed decision by this committee and or the governing body is going to enable that. So I want some real good steer on that, because language is quite important here. I would go away thinking, oh, it's all going to happen, but I've really got nothing formal to back up that opinion. So I'm concerned, and I actually, want that to happen. So I'm not saying don't do that, but I want to be assured, as I'm sure we all do, that where we're spending our money has been spent. And I think if there's been a number of reasonable explanations of why there's been underspent, which apparently both the joint governing body and Independent Māori Statutory Board have been receiving those reports, we've all been accepting the rationale, then this committee, I believe, should be confirming such. So I see Phil's here to respond to the occasion, but which I look forward to, Phil, because again, this is a thing that I've been over in the past 6 years about reprioritisation, putting money over, etc., etc. So I'm happy to take a break and listen to what Mr. Wilson might have to say.
Phil.
So the choice of wording in the report's quite deliberate. We have to go through a process to confirm whether carry forwards are legitimate. There are criteria that have to be met from an accounting point of view, and Sue can give you the more technical explanation of that. But there is absolutely an intention in the Te Waka Angamua space to carry forward money where it appropriately qualifies to be carried forward. And Sue, I don't know if you want to comment on the strict test there, but that is absolutely the intention, Member Taipari.
Through the chair, to add to Phil's point, without giving you very technical lessons on accounting standards, the issue that you have to be satisfied with before you actually can either, essentially to carry something forward, you have to accrue it, and to be satisfied that it passes the test there, you need to essentially be quite certain that you are going to incur the expense normally within the first 90 days of the following financial year. You can push that out to 180 days at a stretch on a lot of occasions, but they're quite clear rules, and we get tested very, very rigorously by Audit New Zealand on that.
So we've got a high degree of certainty around things like the Cultural Initiatives Fund, because it's grant-based. We can run the process, get the grants made, and hence the stronger wording around that.
Okay, that's great. So who's the decision maker in that?
Essentially, through the chair, the final decision on that will come as part of the sign-off at 31 December in each half year and 30 June in each full year on our financial accounts, and that is a sign-off that comes through the audit, first comes through the Chief Executive and myself to the Audit and Risk Committee, and then comes to this committee, and the reason for that is that we are subject to NZX main board listing rules and continuous disclosure obligations due to our listed securities.
All right. An element of risk in my mind as I listen to all that, and the timing, 90 days from when, like 1 July?
Through the chair, it's generally financial year end or half year close. So in our case, both of those applicable dates are 31 December and 30 June each year, as we run a 1 July to 30 June financial year.
Well, all I can do is encourage this committee to endorse the requests for bringing the funds over into this financial year and not offsetting it by what's already been allocated in the 2017-18 year for further spend, to say we carried it over so we don't need to use that money that we allocated in 2017-18. I just want to be clear about that from my perspective. I just think it's risky. And I guess that's why I would encourage, we spend all the money before the year's up so we don't have to be faced with this issue. And then we can look to put more into the allocation for Māori outcomes across the region. So now I just ask, in terms of the other matter around capacity funding overspend of 150K, to acknowledge the 3 relationship agreements. So these agreements have been outstanding for some time, in my view. And why wasn't that catered for and then be deemed as an overspend? Because, I mean, there are capacity agreements that have been agreed to, I understood, on an annual basis for the 19 iwi, of equal amounts, subject to signing of contracts and milestones and outcomes. Why is there a overspend of 150K because three iwi signed a relationship agreement that's 6 years too late?
Through the Chair, this is the first year that all of the capacity agreements with Manawhina iwi have been signed and completed. So we are actually been playing catch up with some of those and carried commitments that were never met previously, and hence we've overspent this current financial year. So
maybe, can I ask this question, is that because we didn't carry it over from other years?
I think we did,
Okay,
but we took so long to get those signed off that lapsed, those timeframes lapsed, and I've instructed my staff and we've managed that through by doing it the way we have done, and so we've now got 100% of all the Manawhina iwi with capacity contracts. So,
thank you. I have 2 more matters and then I'll give it up. So I don't believe 25% have completed the action groups in the treaty audit is good. I think it's poor. So I'm here to push you to say do more. 25% is not great. And I think if this council only achieved 25% of its outcomes over its annual periods, they wouldn't be in office very long. So the reality is try harder, please. Try harder to get the council across the whole group as an organisation to make these things be completed. These are actions and recommendations that come from 2 treaty audits. That was in 2012. So let's not be fooled into thinking it's about just the last one, because remember that the report for the last one said there was a whole lot uncompleted out of 45 recommendations, if I understand, if I remember rightly. And yes, there was a tit for tat over what's a completed action or not, but complete is completed. So that's all I got to say on that. But I'm not going to be happy that 25% is a satisfactory outcome. And really, the last one is, which again, Councillor Hulse talked about as well, is that in Auckland Transport's statement of intent, it talks about the Te Reo Māori policy and why there's no bilingual signage, and basically saying that, in my interpretation, that Te Waka Angamua isn't doing the job that it was going to put in place so that they could use that policy framework to do the things they said to us. I don't really believe that personally, but I don't see it. So can you help me about where that is in this lots of activity and where it's been projected and when you think that is actually going to be done so that it can get across the family group so that bilingual signage can occur, so the policy can be adopted and that funds can be allocated as the same conversation that Councillor Hulse has already had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
in response, first response about the Te Reo policy, that's already been adopted by Council, so it's a matter of implementation now. and that's what we're working on. And yes, there's some work to do with certain areas, and we are currently engaged in that, making progress. So maybe the ship is slow to turn around sometimes, but the job's going to get done. I will certainly follow up with the AT one you mentioned and see how that's gone.
Oh yeah, thank you for reminding me about the policy being adopted. I remember that tight shave that day. Thanks.
In relation to the Cultural Initiatives Fund, with the question you asked before, just as an indicator where we're going this year, the first round of that is already out there now. That it's been opened up for application. So last year wasn't until late in the quarter or last quarter that happened. So we are making advances and making sure that we're getting things done in a timely fashion with some of these funding programs.
Thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Graham. Councillor Quacks.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on page, thank you, and thank you for the report. On page 42 of the attachment, I note that the Indigenous Tourism Conference, which was scheduled for Auckland, is now going to Northland. What's been the reason given for that?
We haven't been given. Sorry. It was a conversation that was being held between the New Zealand Māori Tourism Council and ATED, and it was a decision made by New Zealand Māori Tourism Council.
But we don't know the reason. But has ATED then spent $48,000 on this event?
They reassigned that cost towards the series of discussions that they were having in relation to looking at their capability of being able to host that event. It was a very small amount that was only put in, my understanding, to scope out the opportunity rather than to actually look at it towards direct costs for the event.
Okay, so $48,000 hasn't been spent.
It's what they have reported to us is what they've advised us, that they have allocated that amount of money towards investigating that opportunity.
But it's not going ahead now.
No, it's not going ahead.
Okay. So are they going to be compensated for that?
I'm not too sure. They haven't advised us in their reporting, but it's something that we can follow up with them, that query.
Yeah, especially since they appear to be have been given no reason that you've been able to tell me that this has changed, the venue has changed. We've spent $48,000 of ratepayers' money, which seems an extraordinary amount just to investigate something anyway. And then it's gone to it's gone outside of the region. So, so that would be good to find that out. What's happened there. And I just want to also raise an issue that was raised by Councillor Cooper, and that is about the multiple organisations that seem to be involved in running events on our behalf or on behalf of other parties. Because I noticed at this event, the Indigenous Tourism Conference event was ATED, and yet across the page, Panuku is responsible for supporting the investigation and delivery of a Maori-focused events and opportunity on the waterfront. So, you know, I think she's got a good point there, that we do have multiple parties involved in providing events, when I think most people out there, most Auckland people, would probably think that it was actually the ATED that was responsible for delivering events, not Panuku.
Yep. Nothing further, Councillor Quacks? No? Yep. Okay, we've got.
I'm sure that we're all concerned about $48,000 being burnt for no reason at all, Mr. Chairman.
It is noted, and it is, yeah. concern. We never like to waste or burn money. So Councillor Walker, Wayne Walker.
Sure. Just got a question about the journey that we're on, and it follows on from the comments that Member Taipara has made and others, and that is it would be really great to get some clarity around what things look like and also the cost across those things when we've got everything in place. And that's based on obviously following through on the treaty audit, also the matters around co-governance that appear to be permeating much of the organisation at many levels. That goes to local boards, goes to committees. Obviously we've got costs and so on associated with communications because we're communicating increasingly in Te Reo. We've got training requirements for ourselves and probably local board members and the like. Those things are indicated. And we've clearly got implications for the council-controlled organisations in terms of lifting the game to meet the requirements around the audit and all of the other things here. So what I'm suggesting is it would be really good to have some clarity around that sooner rather than later. I'm anticipating that much of that and many of the costs associated with that will transpire in the next 10 years, so they fit with our long-term plan. It would be really useful to have that information earlier rather than later because there could be some quite significant costs attached to that, I'm assuming. So that rather than just having information on a drip feed basis about what we're moving towards, if we had it rather comprehensively, so we've got a clear picture of what's involved, that would be desirable, I think.
Graham, do you wish to comment?
Yes, through the chair, the LTP process will highlight some of that, and I think we'll take that on board. Te Toa Takatini is also set up around that type of, I suppose, approach to identifying what the investment required in things Māori on behalf of council. And yes, we will definitely make a response back on that on the totality of that over the over the LTP period, and that's what we're working on now.
And just further to that, Mr. Chair, I mean, my suggestion is, if it were possible to have some breakdown as to how it goes to the consenting process, how it goes to local boards, how it goes to obviously our committees, and that excludes in part the governing body, though there are matters around that, and in particular how it goes to the operation of our council-controlled organisations, because there may well be significant movement required there.
Yes, with the council-controlled organisations, particularly around mana whenua engagement on the consenting process, there's a body of work taking place at the moment, identifying that and how we're going to make that more effective and efficient in the future is definitely a focus of what we're doing. So understand the breakdown that you're looking for. It's across council, the whole across the council family, and what impact it is at the moment. It's rather fragmented as a reporting, so we'll have a look at doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Member Taipara, you'd like to comment?
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Oh, well, I'm actually happy to move the recommendation. But also just like to add that I found another great opportunity to learn everything is the joint meetings between the governing body and the Independent Māori Statutory Board, which is a legislative requirement 4 times a year. Get quite very good reports at that forum. So I'd encourage all councillors to attend that. It's a great place to learn. Thank you.
Councillor Hulse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to kind of finish off the discussion that we started in the previous item, and I think we need to move forward with the policy that we've adopted. I think I was talking about a strategy rather than a policy. So we've adopted the policy, and as Member Taipara said, it was a pretty close shave, hardly greeted with overwhelming enthusiasm. But if we put a strategy in place to implement the policy that we've adopted, then we actually show ourselves willing. I think we know around this table, when we're a bit lukewarm on something, we make it almost impossible for Te Waka Angamoa to implement. So I think we need to take the responsibility. I certainly don't place blame or criticism at the feet of Te Waka Angamoa. I think we also have seen, as soon as politically we express urgency about something, it happens. So I guess in partnership with IMSB and Te Waka Angamoa, let's actually look for an implementation strategy. Maybe, being realistic about this, it needs to happen during our discussions on the LTP. But if we've adopted the policy, how many signs are we going to do in the next 12 months? What's the time frame for our replacement policy? Do we start in parks? Do we make it directional signage for Auckland Transport? Do we start replacing signs as they break down? What's the time frame for that? I just think if we're going to do something, we need to actually put a plan in place, not just kind of be a bit limp-wristed and frustrated saying, oh, it hasn't happened yet. If we express our support and our urgency for something to happen around this table, it happens. We haven't done that, and I think we need to. If we aren't going to be honest about multilingual or bilingual signage for Māori, let's be honest and tell our community that. I think this is one of those sort of mealy-mouthed, half-hearted attempts to be supportive, and we haven't followed through. So it's time, I think, Mr. Chair, that we have a report on implementation of this. We've got money sloshing around that we possibly are going to carry forward. We've got something we can absolutely spend money on right now and do it effectively. And for those of us who have travelled or have been brought up in countries with multilingual signage, it's not that hard. So, thank you.
Kia ora. Through the Chair, in response, we're actually in development of the implementation plan at the moment. That's got a 30th September timetable completion, and we are also working actively in the new signs area, I suppose, rather than worrying about replacement at this stage. So the CRLs of this world and the ATs of this world, we're on that bus, if you like, looking at Māori signage or Te Reo Māori signage in those areas and starting out in that place. Parks are also involved in getting that done as well. So it's underway, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. We will have something to report back pretty soon.
Awesome.
And then we'll be criticised anyway. What we did in the lifts, it immediately came out as why we're doing something so ridiculous.
Seven people criticised us, and they did so loudly. And if we are going to make a change, we have to be prepared to face down the naysayers and the racists, to be blunt.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson, to wrap it up.
I just got a little questions. I noticed that 190 Māori young people signed up for Auckland Transport's driver licensing courses. Do we know how many passed? And were they, it says, held on marae and other locations, were they done on a variety of marae or in one place? I didn't know that we did Māori driver.
They were done at, through the chair, they were done at a variety of places. We don't have the details on how many have passed because a number of them, the course is related to learning around road rules, etc. And their course doesn't extend to supporting the actual participants sitting their driver's licence. That's done through a number of other community-based organisations. But there is an intention on their part to follow up on the pass rate to see how their program added value to their participation and pass rate.
Okay, thanks. And Iron Māori event, is that, what's that? What's an Iron Māori event?
It's a version of the Iron
Man
Run. That's going to be changed next year, but we ran that again this financial year. This financial year that we're in now, it's going to be run out of the Manukau to Weddell Centre. Change that event slightly. Just it'll be a swim run event, but it's much more community, hauora, Māori health related entities involved with that. So we've got a couple of sponsors already on board with that. So it's going to happen. We've committed to holding that event next March.
There you go. And and it's gender neutral as well, so that's perfect. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just quickly, just want to thank you and your team. I think it's very holistic and very detailed, and, you know, we don't get this much information from a lot of parts of council. So just want to thank you for, you know, what is quite a holistic look at all the things you do, and we know that the whole of council relies on your team for so much information, so much involvement, so much advice. So just wanted to say, you know, although it's good we're drilling you on certain things, it's actually really, really good and comprehensive. So thanks a lot. And important.
Councillor Hill's right. We're going to move, we have a mover and a second. I'm going to put the resolution. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? No one against? Unanimous. Thank you. We will, I will move the resolution to go into confidential and to have a second, Councillor Cashmore. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Right, we'll have a 5-minute break and then the one last item.
Yeah, because I get